The space station smelled like metal, oil, and forgotten dreams. Jace stood near the docking gate, holding his small bag and a steaming cup of caf. He wasn't rich, just a trader with a half-working ship and a lot of bad luck. But today, he was hoping to find a job or a reason to leave this place. As he sipped the warm drink, he heard soft footsteps behind him. He turned around slowly, and there they were, two alien girls, one taller with long silver hair and sharp purple eyes, the other smaller, her face hidden under a hood, only her glowing green eyes showing. Both looked scared, like they were running from something. The taller one spoke in a low voice. "We don't have money for the tickets, human, but we'll compensate you." Jace blinked, unsure if he heard right. "What?" he asked, glancing at the long ticket line and the station guards nearby. "We just need to get on the ship," she whispered. "Please." He didn't know why he did it. Maybe it was the way they looked at him, not like a stranger, but like he was their last hope. Maybe it was the guards getting closer, their boots loud on the floor, without another word. Jace turned and walked to the ticket booth. "I'm buying 3, he said, sliding his last credits across. The alien girls followed him silently, staying close but not touching. As they passed the guards, one of the men looked at them with suspicion. "Are they with you?" he asked sharply. Jace gave a tired smile. "Yeah, my cousins, first time off planet." The guard grunted and looked away. They made it onto the shuttle just as the engine started warming up. Inside, the ship was crowded but quiet. Jace found them a corner with some empty seats and sat down. The girl sat across from him. Not saying a word, minutes passed, and Jace finally asked, "So who are you two? What's this all about?" The taller one stared at him, then said, "I'm Serana." "She's leery. And you're running from something?" He added. She nodded slowly. "Yes, but it's better if you don't know." Jace leaned back, sighing. "I just used up all my credits to help strangers I don't know." Serana looked down, then reached into her cloak. She pulled out a small metal cube and placed it on his lap. "What's this?" Jace asked. "Payment," she said. "Not now, but soon you'll understand." The ship started moving, shaking slightly as it left the station. Jace glanced at the window. Watching the stars stretch and swirl, something didn't feel right. These girls weren't just poor wanderers or refugees. There was a weight around them, like a storm ready to break. That night, while others slept, Jace stayed awake. He kept staring at the cube on his lap. It had strange markings and pulsed with soft blue light. He didn't dare touch it again. Suddenly, he noticed a shadow move. It was the younger one, Leary, standing near his seat, her eyes glowing gently in the dim cabin lights. She didn't say a word, just stared at him for a long time. Then she turned and walked away silently. Jace shivered, not from fear, but from confusion. Who were they? What had he just gotten himself into? And why did it feel like helping them was the start of something much bigger? As the ship continued flying through the stars, Jace closed his eyes, but sleep didn't come. Behind his eyelids, he kept seeing the girls, the cube, and the look of desperation in their eyes. He had a feeling he wasn't going to be just a helper in this story. He was becoming part of something strange, maybe even dangerous, and deep in the cargo hold, where no one was watching, the cube started to hum louder, as if waking up, sensing something. The journey had only just begun. The ship floated silently through space, carrying hundreds of travelers. But Jace couldn't sleep. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw Leary standing beside him, glowing eyes wide and unblinking. It wasn't a dream. It wasn't a nightmare. It was a question he didn't know how to answer. Who were these girls, really? He sat up in the dark cabin, rubbing his face all around him. People snored or mumbled in their sleep. But across the aisle, Serana and Leary sat still, like statues, not moving, not blinking. Jace felt like they weren't resting. They were listening, watching, waiting for something unseen. He stood and walked quietly to the small washroom, splashing cold water on his face. When he stepped out, he froze. Serana was standing just outside the door, staring at him. "Why are you awake?" he whispered. "We don't sleep like you," she replied softly, her voice calm but cold. Jace glanced around. Uneasy. "You're not just refugees, are you?" he asked. She didn't answer, just turned and walked away, disappearing into the dark corridor. Back in his seat, Jace sat beside the humming metal cube again. It glowed faintly, like it was breathing, alive somehow. He touched it once. It was warm for something metal. Then he noticed something strange. The markings had shifted, changed shape slightly. Now they looked almost like letters, but not in any language he knew. He whispered, "What are you?" But the cube gave no reply. The silence around him was heavy, until he heard something clicking sounds, faint and fast, not human, not mechanical. He looked around quickly. Near the back of the cabin, shadows moved where no one should be. Jace stood, heart beating faster. He walked quietly to the source of the noise, keeping low. And then he saw 3 figures crouched low, watching Serana and Leary from the shadows. Dark armor, smooth helmets, and long sharp tools in their hands. Jace's breath caught in his throat. Bounty hunters, maybe worse. He turned to warn the girls, but Leary was already standing. She raised her small hand, and a ripple of light burst from her palm. It was silent but powerful. The 3 hunters were thrown back, sliding across the metal floor like dolls. The lights in the cabin flickered. Alarms buzzed faintly. People woke up, confused and shouting. The girls moved fast. Serana grabbed Jace's arm and pulled him back toward the emergency hatch. "We have to move now," she said, her voice sharp. "What did she just do?" Jace asked, stunned. Serana didn't answer, just kept running. They slipped into a maintenance tunnel, crawling through pipes and steam. Behind them, more footsteps echoed. "They know we're here," Serana whispered. "They followed us from the station." "Who?" Jace asked, nearly slipping. "The ones who made us," she said quietly, "and now want to break us." They reached a hidden control room, dark and dusty. Leary closed the door and placed the cube on the floor. She touched it with both hands and whispered something in her language. The cube glowed bright, then dimmed. "I activated it," she said simply. "Now we have limited time." Jace stared at them both, angry and confused. "You used me," he said. "You let me help you without telling me anything." Serana nodded. "Yes, and we're sorry. But if you hadn't helped us, we would be gone already." Jace wanted to argue, but his heart wouldn't let him. Something in Leary's eyes, so young, so scared, made him stop. The ship was on high alert now, searching every deck. The girls were targets, and now so was he. "What do you want from me now?" he asked. Serana looked at him seriously. "Stay with us," she said. "We're not safe alone, but with you, maybe we have a chance." Jace laughed once, bitter and tired. "You're the ones with powers, not me." Leary looked at him with a soft smile. "But you're the one who helped," she said. "That means more than powers." The cube pulsed again, brighter now, and a small projection flickered above it, an image of a planet. "Scarred and broken. That's where we're going next," Serana said. "The answer is there." Jace stared at the planet, his chest heavy with questions. This was no longer about tickets or money. This was something ancient, something forgotten, and somehow he had become part of it. Behind them, another alarm rang louder, closer. They had to move again. But this time, Jace didn't hesitate. He grabbed his bag, glanced at the cube, and nodded. "Let's go," he said. "I'm in." And deep in the ship's wiring, something stirred, something watching. The hunt was not over, not yet. The smell of smoke lingered in the air. Jace's ears were still ringing from the last explosion. He could feel the heat against his back as they ran through the cold metal hallway. Serana was ahead, her silver hair streaked with soot. Leary clung to Jace's side, her small hand gripping his jacket tightly. "Where are we even going?" Jace shouted, dodging a loose pipe that fell from the ceiling. "To the shuttle bay," Serana called back. "But we won't make it if they're already there." Jace didn't ask who they were anymore. He knew now something was chasing them, and it wasn't just random soldiers. They slipped through a broken doorway into a narrow service shaft. The lights flickered, casting strange shadows across the walls. Leary looked up suddenly, her eyes glowing again. "They're here," she whispered. Jace looked over his shoulder and saw nothing, only darkness. But he trusted her now when she said danger was near. It meant something was already breathing down their necks. They crawled through the shaft until they reached an open vent. Serana kicked it loose and dropped down. Jace followed, Leary close behind. They landed in a dark storage room filled with crates and old tools. It was quiet, but the wrong kind of quiet. Jace could feel something was wrong. He raised his hand, signaling for silence. Even his breathing slowed. Then he heard it. Click, click, click. Like metal claws tapping on the floor. 3 shapes moved in the dark, tall, smooth. Armored like living shadows, bounty hunters. Jace realized, but not ordinary ones. These were built for one thing: capture and kill. The figures stopped in front of the crates. One of them spoke in a voice that sounded like a machine pretending to be alive. "Return the assets, human, and we'll let you walk away." Serana stepped forward, her voice sharp. "They're not assets, and he's not walking away." The hunter tilted its head. "Unwise," it said, raising a long weapon that hummed. With power, Leary stepped in front of Jace, raising her small hand again. A blast of invisible force knocked 2 hunters off their feet, but the third one jumped forward. Faster than anything Jace had ever seen, he tackled it. Grabbing its arm and pulling it down, the hunter slammed him into a crate. Hard, pain exploded in his back, but he didn't let go. Serana lunged at the distracted hunter, a sharp energy blade snapping from her wrist. She stabbed deep into the machine's neck, sparks flying. The hunter let out a horrible screech as it dropped, lifeless. Jace coughed, rolling onto his side. "I thought you said you didn't fight," he groaned. Serana helped him up, a rare smile on her face. "I didn't say that. I just hoped we wouldn't have to." They didn't wait around. The other 2 hunters were already getting back up. Jace limped after them as they ran through the back door of the storage room. Up ahead was the emergency lift to the lower hangars. They squeezed in and slammed the button. As the lift dropped, Serana turned to Jace. "You fought," she said. "Yeah, well, that thing was going to take you," he muttered. Leary reached out and gently touched his bruised arm. "You didn't have to," she said softly. "But I did," Jace replied. Meeting her glowing eyes, the lift stopped suddenly, and the doors creaked open. Jace stepped out first and scanned the hangar. Empty ships, blinking lights, and the hum of power filled the large chamber. It looked clear, but Jace had learned not to trust appearances. They rushed to a small cargo shuttle near the far wall. Serana entered the launch code, but the panel blinked red. "It's locked down," she said. "We need a clearance chip." Before Jace could respond, a sharp voice rang out from behind. Well, looks like the little ghosts are running again." They turned slowly. A new figure stood at the entrance stall, wearing deep red armor with a cape that trailed behind him. His face was covered by a sleek helmet, but his voice dripped with cruel amusement. "You girls caused quite the mess," he said, stepping closer. Jace moved in front of them without thinking. "Who are you?" he demanded. "I'm the one who's going to end this game," the man replied. Then he pointed at Jace. "And you, human, you just made a very expensive mistake." The man raised his hand, and a squad of enforcers stepped out from the shadows. Weapons drawn, Jace looked at the girls, then at the cube still tucked in Leary's cloak. It pulsed once, just once, but it was enough to remind him. This wasn't about escape anymore. This was about what they carried, who they were, and why the whole galaxy suddenly wanted them gone. And Jace, broken, bruised, and full of questions, stood tall and said, "Then come take us." The lights above them shattered before the first shot was fired. Blinding sparks rained down across the hangar as Serana pulled Jace behind a crate. Leary fell next to them, clutching the glowing cube in her cloak like it was her heartbeat. The red-armored man didn't flinch as his enforcers opened fire. He just stood still, watching them like a hunter letting his prey panic before the reel. Chase began. Jace ducked as another energy bolt sizzled past his head. "We're pinned," he said, trying to stay calm. Serana checked her wrist blade, low power, nearly drained. "I have one strike left," she said. "Maybe two." Jace looked at her, confused. "How is that possible? You just stabbed one of those metal freaks earlier." "I charged it from the cube," she said, voice low. "But it takes more than it gives." Leary opened the cloak, revealing the cube again. It was no longer blue. It pulsed in waves of white, and tiny arcs of lightning ran along its surface. "I think it's waking up," she whispered, eyes wide. "Waking up?" Jace asked, coughing from smoke. "It's a rock, not a person." "No," Leary said. "It's older than all of us." Suddenly, the cube lifted into the air by itself. It floated above her palm, spinning slowly. The lights in the hangar dimmed, and the entire floor began to vibrate like a deep engine was roaring beneath their feet. The red-armored man stepped forward, now interested. "Well now," he said. "I knew it would respond to stress, but I didn't expect it this soon." Serana's eyes narrowed. "You knew?" "Of course," he answered, drawing a curved weapon from his side. "I'm the one who set this entire thing in motion." Jace stood slowly, even as weapons aimed at him. "You're not after them," he said. "You're after that cube." The man nodded. "They're just the keys," he said. "But the door is so much bigger." The cube suddenly let out a deep chime, like a bell underwater. The enforcers hesitated, unsure whether to shoot or run, and in that moment, Leary turned toward the center of the hangar and pointed. A large metal door on the far wall creaked open by itself. No keypads, no scans, just an invisible force pulling it wide. Beyond the door was a tunnel, old and dark, with strange markings glowing along the walls. Jace knew exactly what that meant. "That's where it wants us to go," he said. Serana nodded. "We follow it." They ran, bolts flying past them, but the cube floated ahead. Shielding them like an unseen wall was guarding their backs. The red-armored man shouted for his men to follow. But as they reached the tunnel, the doors slammed shut behind Jace and the girls. Heavy locks hissed into place, cutting them off from the chaos. Inside the tunnel, everything changed. The air was warm and dry, with a scent like old stone and static. The walls were covered in writing that glowed faintly. None of it made sense to Jace. But Serana and Leary both stared at the symbols like they were reading a forgotten story. "I've seen this language before," Serana whispered, "when I was still in the tanks." "What tanks?" Jace asked. "The ones they grew us in," she answered, her voice trembling slightly. "We weren't born, we were made." Jace felt his stomach twist. "You mean like test subjects?" "Like tools," Serana said. "We were created to hold knowledge that was never meant to disappear." Leary walked forward, her small fingers brushing the glowing words. Each touch caused the wall to shift, showing moving images, planets, stars, cities floating in space. Jace stared in awe as the story unfolded. An ancient race, long gone, had built something deep in space. A machine that could remember everything, hold memories like living thoughts. But when war came, they couldn't protect it, so they hid the knowledge inside living vessels, girls like Serana and Leary. Jace felt cold as he realized the truth. "You're not just running from them," he said. "You're carrying something they want to steal." Serana nodded. "If they get it, they won't just rewrite history, they'll control the future." The cube floated ahead, lighting their path, but Jace could feel pressure building in his chest. They were deep underground, maybe under the surface of the ship itself, and something massive was ahead. The tunnel opened into a vast chamber with a glowing sphere in the center. It looked like a star trapped in crystal. The cube floated directly to it and sank into its core. The walls trembled again. Leary fell to her knees, clutching her head. "It's speaking," she cried. "It remembers us." Jace grabbed her shoulder. "Leary, what's happening?" She looked up with tears in her glowing eyes. It's not just a memory holder, she said, voice shaking. It's a gate. Jace didn't know how to explain what he was seeing. It wasn't a dream. But it didn't feel like real space either. All around him, the walls shimmered like glass filled with stars. Floating symbols danced in the air, moving like fireflies. Serana stood frozen, her eyes locked on the glowing sphere. Leary trembled beside her, whispering words that weren't in any language Jace had ever heard. Then suddenly, the sphere cracked open. No sound, just a beam of soft white light pouring out and touching Leary's forehead. Her body stiffened, and her feet lifted off the ground. "Leary!" Jace shouted, trying to pull her down, but Serana grabbed his arm. "Don't," she said. "It's giving her what belongs to her." Inside the beam, Leary's eyes glowed bright white. She wasn't screaming, she wasn't afraid. She looked calm, almost peaceful. Then her mouth opened, and she spoke. But it wasn't her voice. It was deeper, older, layered with echoes from a time long gone. "This vessel has returned," the voice said. "The gate shall open once more." Jace stepped back slowly, chills crawling up his arms. What vessel? What gate? The light faded, and Leary gently floated back to the floor. Her eyes dimmed, and she collapsed. Jace caught her before she hit the ground. She was breathing, but unconscious. Serana kneeled beside them and placed her hand on Leary's head. "She holds the key now," she whispered. "The last piece of memory." Jace didn't understand, but he didn't argue. He just stared at the cracked sphere, which now glowed with a faint heartbeat. Then, without warning, the air shifted. The tunnel behind them shuddered as a heavy door slid open, and through it stepped the red-armored man alone. No guards, no hunters, just him and a long black weapon in his hand. "You led me exactly where I needed to go," he said, smiling under his helmet. "Thank you." Serana stood and pointed her blade at him. "You won't touch her. I won't need to," he replied. "She's already opened it." Jay stood too, placing Leary gently behind a crate. "Opened what?" he asked. The man turned slowly and pointed toward the cracked sphere. "The Ark," he said. "A vault of memory and knowledge buried by the ancients. Buried for a reason." Serana said through gritted teeth. "Buried because they feared what others would do with it." The man raised his weapon and aimed at the sphere. "I'm not here for history," he said. "I'm here for power." Jay stepped between him and the sphere. "If you shoot that, I don't think you'll get what you want." "Oh, I'll get something," the man said. "Even if it destroys this whole chamber." Before he could pull the trigger, the cube that had gone silent suddenly flew back into the air. It spun rapidly, glowing gold now, not blue or white. Then it exploded, not with fire or force, but with light. Everything went white, soundless, endless. And when the light faded, Jace found himself standing in a different place. He wasn't alone. Leary stood beside him, fully awake, her hair flowing in a wind that wasn't real. Serana appeared next, blinking in confusion. The red-armored man stood nearby, his weapon gone. They were in a circular chamber of stars, floating above a sea of memory. "This is the Ark," Leary said softly. Her voice layered again. "This place holds what your people forgot." Jace looked around, stunned. Memories floated like mist wars. Peace, creation, and destruction. Species long gone. Machines older than time. The truth of the galaxy laid bare. The red-armored man stepped forward, reaching for one of the memories. But the mist pulled away from him. "You are not chosen," the voice inside Leary said. "You seek control, not wisdom." He growled and turned to shoot. But the Ark responded first. A beam of light struck him, freezing him in place. He screamed, but no sound came, and slowly he turned to stone. Then the wind blew, and he crumbled into dust. Jay stared at the spot where the man had stood. "He's gone," Leary nodded, her own voice returning. "He wasn't worthy." Serana walked forward and took Jace's hand. "We are," she said, "because we didn't take, we chose to protect." The Ark began to dim, its message shared. The Cube returned to Leary's hand, now completely still. Then the white light came again, and the chamber faded. When Jace opened his eyes, they were back in the tunnel. The sphere was quiet. The door behind them sealed. The danger was over for. Now Jace looked at the girls, tired but alive. What now? He asked. Serana smiled. Now, she said, we give you your compensation. Asterisk, the stars outside blinked slowly, like they were waiting for something. The shuttle flew silently now. Far away from the station, far from the chaos, Jace sat. In the pilot's seat, gripping the controls. Though the autopilot was active, he wasn't flying the ship anymore. He was trying to fly away from what he had seen. Behind him, Serana and Leary sat quietly, both holding the cube in their hands. Like it was an egg about to hatch. Jace turned slightly, his voice low. So is this the part where you finally tell me what my compensation is? Serana looked up, her purple eyes calm. You already received it, she said. Jace frowned. I missed the part where I got paid. Leary gently set the cube on the floor between them. It chose you, she said simply. I didn't choose. Anything, Jace muttered, leaning back. You did, Serana replied. You chose to help without asking why. That's not a reward, he said. That's just called being decent. The ship suddenly jolted. A sharp shake that came. From outside, Jace jumped back into the controls. What was that? Leary ran to the scanner screen, her voice soft but firm. Something is following us. Jace stared at the radar. Nothing was there, just black space. But the ship trembled again. Harder this time then. Without warning, the lights flickered. And the engines cut. Everything went dark. Only the glow from the cube remained, casting shadows across their faces. And then came the sound like something breathing. But too big, too cold, too old. It wasn't outside. It was inside the ship. Jace reached for his blaster, but Serana stopped him. Don't, she said. Weapons won't help against this. What is it? He whispered. The Ark isn't just memory, Leary said. It was sealed for a reason. The air turned thick, like the space around them was folding. Then a figure stepped out of the wall, not walking, not floating, just appearing. It looked almost human, tall and pale with black eyes like the endless void. It didn't blink, didn't speak, but Jace felt its voice inside his head. You woke the gate, it said. Now the Guardian comes to judge. Serana stepped forward, her voice firm but respectful. We awakened it to protect, not to rule. The creature tilted its head. And yet, a human holds the bond, it said, looking straight at Jace. He is not of the blood. Leary stood beside Jace, her hand slipping into his. He may not be of the blood, she said, but the cube chose him. The Guardian stepped closer. If he is truly chosen, then he must face the echo. Jace looked at the others, confused and nervous. What's the echo? Before they could answer, the world around him shattered. Jace blinked and suddenly he was alone. No ship, no girls. Just a dark landscape with mirrors floating in the air. Each mirror showed a version of himself, some afraid, some angry, some broken. A voice echoed around him. You gave without knowing. But will you give again knowing the cost? Jace shouted. What cost? What do you want from me? One mirror cracked, showing him holding Leary's body, lifeless. Another showed Earth burning. Another showed nothing but him alone, forgotten, lost. He dropped to his knees, shaking. I didn't ask for any of this, he said, but you stepped into it. The voice replied, now show us your truth. Jace stood slowly and reached toward the broken mirror. His hand went through it and light exploded again. He was back in the ship, gasping for air. Leary held him tightly, tears on her face. You passed, she whispered. The Guardian stared for a moment longer, then bowed slightly. The Ark accepts him, it said. Then it faded into dust, vanishing completely. The ship lights returned. The engine hummed back to life. Jace sat down, exhausted. What did I just do? Serana knelt beside him. You proved your soul, she said. The Ark responds to truth, not strength. Jace didn't feel like a hero. He felt like someone who had barely survived a storm. But Lyri smiled softly. "You faced the echo and didn't run," she said. "That's more than most could ever do." The cube now floated silently between them. It didn't glow or spin. It simply waited. Whatever came next, it was only waiting for Jace to say the word. The stars looked different now, not because they had moved, but because Jace had. He stood at the edge of the ruined moon, staring out into space with the cube floating quietly by his side. Behind him, the surface cracked and shifted as ancient tech stirred beneath the soil. Lyri and Serana stood silently, both watching him with something deeper than respect, something like trust, maybe even hope. "This is where it ends," Jace whispered, more to himself than to anyone else. "No," Serana said softly, "this is where it begins." The cube pulsed once, slow and steady. Lyri stepped forward, placing her hand over its surface. "It's ready," she said. "It remembers everything now," Jace nodded, even though he still didn't fully understand what it meant to be chosen. He had no royal blood, no training, no powers, just a tired heart and a stubborn will. And yet somehow, that had been enough. A deep rumble shook the ground. All three of them turned as a tower slowly rose from the heart of the moon. It looked like glass and stone fused together, ancient symbols spiraling upward into the stars. A soft voice filled the air, not from any speaker, but from the tower itself. "Final sequence initiated," it said. "Galactic relay unlocking." Serana's eyes widened. "This is the center," she said. "This moon isn't just a vault, it's the main switch." Jace frowned. "For what?" "For everything," Lyri answered. "History, forgotten species, old alliances, lost technologies. It's about to come back." Ships began appearing on the scanner, not just one or two, but hundreds, maybe more. Some were sleek and shining, others were broken and scarred, different flags, different shapes, but all heading toward them. "They felt the signal," Serana said. "They're coming for the Ark." Jace gritted his teeth. "Then we seal it before they can take it." "No," Lyri said, shaking her head. "We share it." He looked at her like she was mad. "They'll fight over it," he said. "They'll burn each other just to hold a peace." Lyri stepped forward and took his hand. "Maybe," she said, "but someone has to believe in better." Jace stared at her, at Serana, and finally at the cube. He saw his reflection in its smooth surface. Not a warrior, not a leader, just a man who said yes when no one else would. "All right," he said. "Let's give the galaxy a second chance." He placed his hand on the cube. The tower responded immediately. Rays of light burst upward into space, beams of memory and sound carried across systems, reaching every ship, every world. He could hear voices, ancient languages, forgotten names, broken songs of the past now whole again. In orbit, the fleet slowed, confused, listening, weapons lowered, engines cooled. Even those who came to steal found themselves silent in the presence of truth. Back on the moon, Jace fell to his knees, exhausted. The cube settled gently beside him. No longer glowing, it had done its work. Serana lifted him up, steadying him with a quiet strength. Lyri smiled and whispered, "You're part of us now." A message spread across the stars, not from a government, not from a king, but from a human who once had nothing to give except kindness. The message was simple. We remember, we forgive, we begin again. Years later, people would tell the story of the human who answered a desperate voice. "We don't have money for the tickets, human, but we'll compensate you." They would say that he changed everything by doing the one thing no machine could calculate. He cared. And so, the stars turned again. New paths lit up, old wounds faded, and among them all, one small ship drifted peacefully, carrying 3 souls and a quiet cube, still watching, still waiting, just in case the galaxy ever forgot again.